We've let down a generation of kids, haven't we?
We have. We've done more than let down, actually. We've betrayed them, and we've done so actively. And, you know, we are, as you said, we're now seeing the results of very conscious decisions. And these results, they're shocking, but actually they should surprise no one, because this was entirely predictable and predicted.
Right, but Molly, let me play devil's advocate here, because there is a point, there is an argument that if your children are spending more time at home with you, for example, that in a way they should be better brought up, because we were all locked down and we should be looking after them more. The idea that some of them are turning up at school at the minute, unable to talk, one of them needs extensive physiotherapy because he got to walk around the school, one of them's brought in school with a shopping trolley, for goodness sake, right? That is the fault of parents, surely.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a very complex societal problem. And I think, you know, undoubtedly parents have a huge role. Of course they do. No one's denying that in children's upbringing. I think, though, what has happened now is you have had a weak education system. So, you know, the education system was riddled with problems even pre-pandemic, and layered onto that, you have a whole series of problems relating to absence, which you picked up, problems relating to development. These problems, you know, start at cradle and they go to career. And this is, I mean, it's worse than a crisis. This is our, you know, greatest, in my view, national emergency. It's an absolute disaster. The figures, I don't think, you know, I'm really glad actually that you've picked up this Children's Commissioner report, because the figure that people talk about when we're talking just on the absence issue tends to be 100,000 children. Now that's shocking. 100,000 children who have just fallen off the school register is an awful number. But then there was this report released, as you said, last week, which actually implies the problem is so much worse than we have realised. It's 1 in 4 children, and that's not children that have fallen off the register, but it's 1 in 4 children who are now regularly absent from school.
Which is insane. Sorry, let's highlight on this. Let's highlight on this, right? Because we've had the case of, and look, I don't want anyone who's listening now, whether you're on radio or watching us on telly, of course, to feel like I'm insensitive if I mispronounce this poor child's name. My understanding is it was Arthur Labiano Hughes, I believe, who was tragically killed, obviously, by his, well, evil parents. Now, when you take kids out of school, it's by definition harder to monitor anything, frankly, about them. And then you, on top of that, go, we were in a national lockdown anyway. Social services weren't coming round every single day. They were on a reduced service as well. Basically, kids were being killed and abused more so as a result. They were almost in prison with their abusive parents as a result of some of the lockdown measures. Is it fair to say, Molly, never again?
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely fair to say never again. And it is so I think the thing here is, you know, what you've just said is entirely right. It was known as early as April 2020, unambiguously. There was a report, there was a SAGE meeting. That meeting is minuted. One of the documents produced in that meeting, we don't know if it was discussed. It looks like it may not have been, but it was a document produced in the meeting, laid out exactly the risk that you have stated. And it said very clearly that the safeguarding regime had failed. We knew then that 94% of our most vulnerable children, these are our vulnerable members of society, just as deserving of society's protection as, you know, older people and unwell people. We knew they were not in school. Now, what did we think was going to happen to some of those children?
Just quickly, Molly, just quickly. We're dealing in hypotheticals here. We've only got about a minute left, by the way. Just quickly, if something else happens, let's say monkeypox kicks off, or we end up with something else, you know, something else comes out of a lab in China, or doesn't, of course. But let's just say that, yeah, I know. But we have a similar-ish pandemic, right? Do adults who have let children down both at home, at school and in government, very quickly, Molly, do adults have to run the risk of catching some illness off their kids because we can't trap the kids again?
We can't trap the kids. In any previous disaster planning, you would prioritise the children, and that's what should have happened.